Discovering who you are today is the first step to being who you will be tomorrow. Join Deborah Powell and Barry O'Donnell on a step-by-step journey into finding your heart light, a podcast series of self-exploration and discovery. Are you ready to become the best version of you?
Hello, everyone. I'm Barry, coming to you from Canada, along with my partner, Deb, down in Australia. Episode 2 for Finding Your Heart Light. Today's topic is going to be about pause. So before I get into it, Deb.
Welcome, everyone. It is exciting. Thanks so much, Barry, to jump into our second episode. Our last week, if you missed it, was all about language. And so you'll see how the pause that we're going to talk about today, how it is influenced a lot also by the language that we use. So it's a really, really exciting thing. I'm so excited to jump into today's with Barry and be able to help you perhaps with understanding the importance of the pause. So it's great to be able to have you here with us today. And let's jump straight into it, Barry. Pause.
Having a pause button is one of my favorite things, actually. And it's a very easy thing to start implementing into your life. Now, what do I mean by having a pause button? It's just like it sounds. When something happens, an event, a communication that you don't like, some kind of action towards you, anything, that your first response is going to be either shout, yell back, just react out of instinct. Ask you to think about having a pause button and actually push that button. Now, in the time it takes you to push that button, take a nice deep breath. And literally that fast is going to be enough time for your mind to go from reaction mode to response mode. It'll give you just a split second, which is all it takes to think about what just happened and respond to the situation versus a straight outright reaction. And especially because when you react, it tends to be you go either on the offense or you go very offensive as well. You go into attack mode. If you feel attacked, you're going to attack back. But if you're feeling attacked and you take that one breath to think about why is this happening or why are you feeling like this, you'll respond differently. It gives you an opportunity to try and understand the other person or understand the situation at hand and deal with it in a more appropriate manner, which may prevent things from escalating.
Absolutely, Barry. That's such a great point. And I love that the concept of having the pause button and even visualizing this pause button that perhaps we can just hit at that time, to stop ourselves if we feel that need to react to something that has been said. What are the scenarios that you think create or the necessity for the pause buttons? Is it someone that has said something to you that has really triggered you to react to, or perhaps a miscommunication?
I think that pause button can be put in virtually any type of scenario. It can be that communication. You're doubting what you just heard. So it's pause. And even if you just think about the language we talked about in the other session and change how you're going to respond, it's not a reaction. When you go take your initial reaction, you say, what the hell are you talking about? Or why did you say that? Or what do you mean? It comes across very accusing. Hit that pause button and go, okay, I'm not sure what you meant here.
Absolutely.
And just change your language. Say, can you just please clarify that? So
Mm.
I make sure I didn't misunderstand what you're trying to say. That just changes the scenario. It doesn't turn into a fight, it turns into a conversation. You can use it in, let's take it to the other side of it. Instead of just something, a situation like that we're worried about a fight starting, let's just say you feel like you're losing control of the situation. A really great analogy I thought about before this podcast is, if you think about the song by Meatloaf, Paradise by the Dashboard Light, and it's getting
Great
exciting.
song.
It's getting exciting. First base, second base, third base. Holy cow, I think he's going to make it and stop right there. That's pause button. That is perfect. Like,
Yeah.
stop, wait a minute. Things are getting out of hand here. I got to make sure we're on the same page.
Uh,
Perfect situation for
mm,
that pause button. So it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It can be when really exciting things are happening, but you just want to feel like, okay, maybe I'm losing control of the situation. You know, any way you look at it, great time to think, pause.
yeah.
A 1 second, 2 second, 5 second pause. Is that going to change anything in the day? No. It's going to give you that time to regain control, get a little clarity, get refocused, and carry on either at a different pace or the same pace. I mean, you get to decide, but you get an opportunity for clarity. So that pause button, I think, is that's like a little magic button.
Oh, absolutely. Like I'm loving that in the fact that, as you say, it's not just perhaps things that trigger us in a negative way or a harsh way. It's also in that overly excited way that just take that time to be able to express it in a lot more in a lot more positive way perhaps, and in an understanding way, so that the other person also really understands what we mean by it, because we can so often misinterpret things, and it can just be by the language that we use. So the combination of our language and really thinking about it, it is a thing that we do need to put a little of pause in to go, what would be a good way to be able to say this that allows the other person to fully understand what I'm talking about? And again, coming back to us, that I really love is to be able to ask and to language it in a way that really expresses the I'm not quite sure what you mean. We can assume or think that we know what they mean, but if that's a case and it's like an assumption or I think it's like this, ask the question. When something has become quite a heated discussion, argument, whatever you want to word it as, what is a really great way that you would suggest when things hit a level like that, to be able to use that pause button?
That actually takes things at a different level. If you use the pause button before it gets that heated stage, it'll save a lot of grief and aggravation. If
Yes.
you try using the pause button when it gets that heated stage, the pause button, the way I look at it, I'd use the pause button just to get control of myself again and just
Mm,
say, okay, and just realize that as things get more heated and more aggravated, there's a real tendency to say things. I'm not going to say that we don't mean, because some people there's an element of truth to everything you say, but it usually comes from a place of pain. And when you start getting heated, it's usually because somebody's not feeling heard, somebody's not feeling validated. And then as both people get louder, both people's anger comes up, their rage comes up. Neither one's feeling heard, neither one's feeling validated, neither one's communicating, neither one's listening anymore. If you can still activate that pause button, it's going to be okay, we're going to have a pause, but we're going to have a real pause here. It's not just a deep breath and carry on. It's pause, walk away from each other for a few minutes, give yourself a chance to calm down, and then try resuming your conversation. And it may be a
yeah.
matter of, look, we can't have this conversation right now. I've got 14 million things on my mind. I've got things that need to be done. In my opinion, or the way I'm feeling right now, is what I need to do is deal with that stuff. I understand this is important to you. And we're trying
Mm,
to have a conversation, but I can't have this conversation right now. I can have this conversation with you. Give me an hour to finish my stuff, or let's rest, sleep on tonight, and pick it up tomorrow. Whatever's going to work for you.
mm.
But you
I
need to
think
have
that's
that
really important.
pause.
Yeah, absolutely, Barry. I think that that's really important to be able to share with the other person part of the reason why, in the sense that if you do have stresses about other things or there's a lot going on, quite often the other person may not realize how it's making you feel. So I agree with that, being able to share, and what we hope is that there is the understanding from the other person, because a conversation tends not to go anywhere, particularly if it starts getting too heated. What I've found is that when a conversation gets really heated, no one is actually listening to each other. The only person they're listening to is their own voice. And that absolutely gets you nowhere. And so the pause to be able to break break that perhaps that state that's happening is a really important thing. And I think as a lead on to that, an important thing not to dwell on that specific discussion that was happening as to, like, why is this happening, what are they doing now. One of the things, though, is that sometimes it can be really hard to, or the understanding of, okay, well, I've got the pause button, I'm using my pause button, but why does it always need to be me? Why do I always need to be the one to pause? How would you handle or suggest? What are your suggestions for that that type of thinking?
Well, one, it brings up a mindset issue,
Mm,
which is something that we're working on throughout this podcast series. Two, if you change the language on what you're just verbalizing,
mm,
why does it always have to be? Why does it always have to me?
mm.
When you realize you're the only one you have any control over here. So the whole idea is for you to make sure you are in control. So instead of saying, why does it always have to be me? It's okay. I am going to use the pause button to so that I can take control of this situation again. Now you're not the
Yeah.
victim. You're empowered.
Mm,
It's a different way
mm.
of using language, and which is mindset.
Yes.
The other
Yeah.
thing, because I loved what you said there just a minute ago about using that pause button and to break the state. Because you're right, when we start getting so focused on just being right and on winning this argument, we get in a state. So if you can break that state and get them out of that mindset, which is where your pause button has, is just magic. Like you just got to break that state, distract, use that pause to create a distraction. And it can be as
Absolutely.
simple as, you know, you hit the pause button, and instead of saying, what the hell are you talking about? Say, do you smell popcorn? It's just something that's going to, it's just going to change your mind. It just snaps them out of it. I mean, that's just an example. You can pick anything you want, but it's now I put a pause, but I took
Mm,
advantage of the pause. No, there's lots of things you can do with this, but
absolutely. Actually, and that is what really made me think how the truth, apart from taking back that own power and that control to yourself, I can see how that break state of, take the pause, take a moment out. It's not just for me. It actually will help the other person as well, because sometimes I find that when you're in a discussion like this where there's solid opinions on one side, it can cause reactivity, and both sides can really go off course. The conversation can go into an area that isn't even where it started. because of the fact that we've distracted it by reactivities, which lead to all of those other little paths and networks coming in and bringing in all of these things that certainly aren't necessary for the topic at hand. And so I can really see the value in taking that pause to take back your own control. Doing this continually, it certainly can also help the other person. I think by being able to have to do that pause as well, because if the conversation's not going anywhere and we're taking that pause, two parties are really gaining the benefit from it. So that's a really great, like the pause. It's such a valuable thing, and valuable in so many areas of our life, as you said.
I love where we went with that too. Because you're right. When you understand that you just took your power back by hitting that
Mm,
pause button, giving yourself just a few seconds to breathe and to think about how you want to respond, what kind of language you want to use, trying to understand the situation. That's all it takes. And the more you practice this, the better you get at it, the more uses you start seeing for it. People are going to notice
yeah.
that they're going to notice the way you respond instead of reacting. They're going to notice the difference in you, which makes you a
Mm,
role model. Now,
absolutely.
being a role model doesn't guarantee that somebody's going to model your behavior or they're going
Mm,
to mirror what you're doing, but at least you're in control of yourself. So if all you did with that pause button is got control of your emotions and your mindset and broke that state so you can focus on whatever the conversation is, if that's when you're using the pause button, or focus on where do I want to go next. If that's all you do, wow, that's a
yeah.
huge step from where you were before. That's
Mm,
a huge
ab-
difference from your previous strategies and patterns.
yes, absolutely. What I have found is that it allows the calm, and it allows the calm to actually come in. So where we were discussing and where you'd mentioned it takes your own power back. It's so true, as you said, Barry, the more that you do it, the more and easier it is to be able to control any type of reaction that you have, because you're already starting in the calm. You're already starting with the pause there. It's waiting for you, and it's so much easier to implement. And it's amazing the feeling that you can get by knowing that I have the ability to do this, and it's just a natural thing. So it can become a more natural and a habitual thing that you do, rather than, I think, at the very beginning, learning how to take those pauses, how to take a few breaths and just ease that heightenedness down of the way that you're feeling, can really contribute in the ongoing success of the way that we deal with situations, and any situation, because we can already feel the calm knowing that we're in control. So it's such a valuable thing. What if someone has a little bit of a difficulty taking that pause? What other suggestions would you have that can encourage a pause like state?
Just like that.
Oh,
All I did there is took a breath.
yeah.
Just how do I want to answer that?
Mm,
that's, that's it. One thing about
yeah.
the pause button is a lot of people are uncomfortable with silence or an
Mm,
awkward silence. So even saying the word pause button, they get people thinking, okay, it's gonna be how long am I gonna be quiet? Like is this gonna drag out? And that's why I've been using the words like it's only a few seconds, the matter of one breath. Like
mm,
your mind is faster than any computer built, and your mind will access all the information on all your experiences and all the knowledge that you've got in there in a heartbeat. It's not a long pause. It
mm.
may seem like a long time in the first couple of times you do it, and especially if you're giving it more thought. But I look at it like this: if I don't say a thing to you for 3 seconds or 5 seconds, or even 10 seconds before I answer. But when I answer, I come from that calmness, that peace, that I'm okay. I'm going to try and understand you. I
Mm,
need to I need to be clear on where you're coming from and what you're trying to tell me, so that I know I'm responding correctly, instead
yeah.
of that pause. But it gives me a chance to get rid of my filters. The way I'm looking at the world is
Mm,
pause long enough. I think, okay, where are you coming from? What do you mean? What do you want? Help me understand. Stephen Covey, that's one of his principles, of the 7 principles of highly effective habits of highly effective people. 7 habits of highly effective people. There we go. Yeah,
got it.
stumbling block. But seek to understand before being understood.
I love that.
It's awesome, but
Mm,
it is a skill that requires a conscious effort. So instead of me trying to yell and get in your face and make sure I'm heard, because you're
mm,
not hearing when I start yelling or somebody starts yelling at us, we start shutting down. But if I hit a pause button and say, okay, help me understand what it is you're trying to say, or what the problem is, what the issue is, and what you need from me.
yeah.
And let's make sure I understand that before we carry on with this conversation, because you said one thing and you know what you meant to say, but what I heard, whoa,
Mm,
entirely different. But if I
mm,
hit that pause button, change the way my language on, so I can respond from my heart instead of my head, come from a place of compassion instead of ego,
mm,
and try and understand you,
yeah.
or at least be clear on what you said. You know what? That 10-second pause that seemed like an eternity is nothing compared to how long it's going to take to get over this fight by the time we get through hurting each other because we're not feeling heard.
Yeah, that is so true, Barry. That's a great thing to be able to consider too. And this is where everything that we've been talking about is really comes together, and I can understand it if someone's going through this this reactivity, and it may seem really hard at the start, but it's something that may take that little bit of time. But it's such a great feeling to be able to do it even the once, to know you did it. Yes, I can do that pause, I can take that breath, I am in control. And so I love all of these things that you've been saying. It's so important to just take that little bit of pause, take a breath. Those few seconds may seem like an eternity, but to be able to think first before that reaction, ask what is meant by it. And the language is so vitally important. And I think the way that we tone the language as well, rather than throw that heightened, heightened, anxious voice out there, it's really the pause can allow that vocal, that tone to really just come down that little bit, and remain that, bring our calmness back with our control. Think, what are we going to say? And to be able to just express it in a way that allows you to be understood as well, rather than again another misconception of what was meant. So incredibly an effective tool. Just a few seconds of pause can make a wealth of difference to the outcome. It's just fabulous.
Yeah. That's exactly why this is our second step in finding your heart light. We started off with a language, and now you can use the pause button to let you think about that language. And it's not going to be automatic. It's not going to happen every time. It's not going to have the
Mm.
result you want every time. But it gives you an opportunity to change the way things are going. It gives you an opportunity to get control of yourself. That is all you get out of that pause button. I think that's a huge win, because
Yeah,
you didn't have
absolutely.
control before you hit that pause button. Being able to hit that pause button tells you right then and there, I'm in control, because I paused. I'm in control again. Maybe you
Yeah.
don't know what to do next, but
Mm.
at least you hit that pause button.
being aware of the language we use and the pause button. I don't know how much further we can go on all of this. These are two such powerful tools for the toolkit, and knowing that after we really can work hard on doing all of these things, how much better we feel inside about who we are. How much better we feel about knowing that we do have this power. We do have this power to language things in a way that can be easily or more easily understood. And being able to take those moments where we can just quietly just pause for that moment and take a few breaths. It allows the anxiety to drop and our heightened state. So, wow, these are two great tools. Fabulous.
I think you've got it down pat.
Mm. Mm. So, if we've done really two great tools, where are we going to head to next week, Barry?
Next week, this is where we find out I wasn't really prepared for that. But
Well,
I
I
don't have
love
to.
doing things like that. Just take a pause.
Yeah, I'll take a pause, pull out my notes. Yeah,
Pause.
yeah. Oh,
Well, I think after a pause, it may be perhaps we've done so well with language and so well with pause. The thing that I would really like is to be able to give myself a little bit of credit for doing so well.
you nailed it. That's an excellent point. That's exactly where we're going to go.
Ah,
When
that
we come
sounds
back next week,
yeah.
about giving yourself credit and acknowledging your experiences, and maybe from a different perspective. So
Yeah.
you're going to be able to use the language you've learned. You're going to be able to use that pause button. And then we'll talk about something else you can do with that pause button. We're going to bring
Sounds
today to a
fantastic.
close.
Hmm.
I want to thank everyone for attending today's podcast and for supporting us and for the comments we've been receiving. We're loving the feedback. We're loving this group. Look forward to connecting with you as we carry on in the series. So until next time, keep shining. Bye for now.
Thanks so much, Barry. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. It's always so exciting. And between now and next week, would love to know how many pauses you've been able to achieve and share. You please share some of your comments of maybe times that you have been a little bit triggered during the week and when you've applied this pause button. We want to hear about the gold and how it made you feel because it really is it's an amazing, powerful tool that you have the ability, everyone has the ability to be able to use. So we want to see and hear about some of your great pause scenarios that you've come across this week before we meet next week, and I think credit for everyone. Will certainly be a topic that we'll love discussing when we have a look at some of your comments. Thank you so much again for being here. We look forward to catching up with you next week. And again, like as Barry said, shine. And we're going to be finding your heart light really soon. Thanks so much for joining. Cheers, Barry. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.